So in this video, I'm going to help you figure out if you should live in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. Hell's Kitchen is a neighborhood in Midtown West, but it is its own separate neighborhood. I would say that over the years, Hell's Kitchen has become more and more trendy, but it got its name because years and years and years ago, it was definitely considered a rough neighborhood in Manhattan, and that's why it was called Hell's Kitchen, but it's definitely not like that anymore. I want you to think of the location of Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen being in Midtown West, it is pretty close to both Times Square and the theater district. This can be both good and bad, of course. Now, if you love the theater, you're going to love being within walking distance of the theater district because you can get to Broadway shows in literally, depending on where you live in the neighborhood, 10 minutes or even under that. But at the same time, that also comes with a lot of tourist traffic. So this is something I want you to think about as well. There's definitely going to be a lot of tourists in Times Square and the theater district. However, they do come through Hell's Kitchen because you will get some spillover since it's literally the neighborhood next door. But I would say there's probably not as much tourist traffic in Hell's Kitchen as you would think with it being next to these two neighborhoods. And I do have to say, for people who really love the theater and go often, it's just so worth being within walking distance of the theater district. Also, Hell's Kitchen has a restaurant row, and a lot of people in Manhattan don't even know that. I think it's a really underrated dining neighborhood, and there's so many good restaurants that enough people don't come in from other neighborhoods to dine at these restaurants, honestly. And I also think the bar scene is pretty good as well. I would say, bar scene wise, it's not a pretentious bar scene like some other neighborhoods in Manhattan. You could definitely find something for everybody here in Hell's Kitchen. So if you do like being in a neighborhood that has a lot of restaurants to pick from, plus a decent bar scene, this could be a good neighborhood for you. Now, it's definitely not the type of neighborhood where you're gonna go really get dressed up and go out for a night. There is a little bit of that around the neighborhood, but it's not known for that, I would say. Just consider that as well. It's more of like a restaurant bar scene rather than a going out scene. If you look at the restaurants in Hell's Kitchen as a whole, there's not a ton of really high-end dining like there are in some other neighborhoods, but at the same time, you are getting very nice dining in this neighborhood. And sometimes if you think about it, when you're living in a neighborhood, how many times are you gonna go out to the most expensive high-end dining on a day-to-day basis? And everyone goes occasionally, but from a day-to-day basis, you're not gonna be going to the most expensive dining. Sometimes it's good to have more low-key, subtle places in your direct neighborhood. Now, let's take a look at the grocery store options. I would say Hell's Kitchen is definitely not the best for grocery stores. Now, there are some small local shops in the neighborhood, and that's what a lot of people rely on. There's a Whole Foods up in Columbus Circle. So if you're in North Hell's Kitchen, you're gonna have that option. And then if you're in South Hell's Kitchen, your best option is gonna be probably to go to some of those local grocery stores. The only other Whole Foods is going to be in Hudson Yards, which is quite a walk. I actually used to live on 42nd Street in Hell's Kitchen, technically. I know it's like right on the brim of not being Hell's Kitchen. I used to walk to the Hudson Yards Whole Food because that was definitely closer than the 59th Street one was. And it was a little bit of a hike, especially when I was trying to get some groceries, but it can be done depending on where you are in the neighborhood. But I would say that your best bet is definitely gonna be relying on local or delivery groceries. And over the past few years, they actually opened up a Target in the neighborhood, which is very convenient as well. And for a Target in the city, I would say it's pretty nice. Some Targets in Manhattan are very small and just really narrow and just not really the most pleasant experience. And I would say I like the Hell's Kitchen Target. It's probably one of the better ones I've seen. And we talked a little bit about the restaurants in the neighborhood, but now let's take a look at the fast casual dining scene. I always like to mention these dining options as well because you're probably not gonna go dining every day of the week, right? You're gonna need some takeout options as well. And I would say that the takeout options are pretty good in Hell's Kitchen. And you could find a lot of different style cuisines for takeout right in the neighborhood. And look, everyone relies on the delivery apps nowadays because they're just so accessible. But at the same time, sometimes it's nice to just be able to walk into a place and just grab something and bring it back to your apartment. Now, the public transportation is pretty decent in Hell's Kitchen. I would say that if you live all the way west in the neighborhood, so anything west of 10th Avenue, public transportation is going to be a little bit trickier for you. And you're going to have to rely on bus public transportation instead of subway public transportation. So I used to live all the way on 42nd Street on 12th Avenue. That was definitely not the most convenient because what I ended up having to do was I had to take a bus to the subway or walk to the subway, which took a really long time, like almost 15 minutes. It definitely was not convenient. Now, no matter where you are west of 10th Avenue in Hell's Kitchen, you're gonna have to rely on buses because the subways just don't service all the way west in that neighborhood and in most neighborhoods in Manhattan. You're definitely gonna have to rely on bus transportation. And it's not that bad. And I would say the buses do come so frequently, but at the same time, it's like you have to take two forms of transportation depending on where you're going, right? So that's definitely not convenient. But at the same time, at least you do have those bus options. Now, if you are in 8th, 9th Avenue, you can easily walk to the subway lines on 8th or 9th Avenue or 7th Avenue, depending on where you're going. I would say that depending on where you are in the neighborhood, public transportation can either be really good or not the best. So think about that when you're looking at homes. Now let's talk about the real estate here. So I would say overall, you can find decent deals in Hell's Kitchen. Now, when I say deals, I mean deals in Manhattan. So what does that mean? That means basically like compared to some other neighborhoods in Midtown West or downtown, you're going to get maybe a little bit better deal here compared to those other neighborhoods. And how do we really compare those? Usually you're looking at like the price per square foot. So I would say that in Hell's Kitchen, you can get a little bit of a bigger apartment sometimes compared to these other neighborhoods than you can there. So I do feel like it definitely draws people because of that. And also, if you take a look at the type of homes in Hell's Kitchen, there are so many different types of homes. I literally think that there's something for everybody. There are mid-rise buildings, high-rise buildings, townhomes, walk-ups, luxury apartments, a little bit of new construction as well. So literally every type of home in Manhattan can pretty much be found in this neighborhood. So another thing to mention too about Hell's Kitchen is it is a waterfront neighborhood. And why do I think that that's important? I personally am very, very biased. I love waterfront neighborhoods because I just love to be able to on a nice day walk to the waterfront and just be able to get some fresh air and kind of feel like you're getting out of the hub of the city. Some people don't really care about that, but if you do, you have that option in Hell's Kitchen. Now, depending on where you are living in Hell's Kitchen, you might have to walk a little bit further to get to the waterfront than other people. Remember, I was living on 12th Avenue, so I was right on the waterfront. But at the same time, you can walk from anywhere in the neighborhood. And another plus on Hell's Kitchen too is depending on where you are, if you're in North Hell's Kitchen, you're going to be pretty close to Central Park. So if you love Central Park, you're going to be able to easily walk there from your apartment if you're in North Hell's Kitchen. If you're in South Hell's Kitchen or in the middle, it might be a little bit of a walk, but still doable. At the end of the day, who would I say would love Hell's Kitchen or who would dislike Hell's Kitchen? It's a little tough to say with this neighborhood because there really is something for everybody. If you are the type of person who loves the lively scene, you love to be near bars, restaurants, and action, I would say to live in Hell's Kitchen, but closer towards 8th, 9th Avenue, that area, because that's where most of the action is going to be in Hell's Kitchen. If you're the type of person who wants to live in Hell's Kitchen, but you don't really like being on top of that and you want it to be more quiet, calm, then I would say go west of 10th Avenue. And there you're going to find really, really nice apartments, but at the same time, definitely quieter. There's a few restaurants here and there and other businesses, and you're going to be right on top of the waterfront pretty much, so it's really, really nice. And you might even get a really nice view from your apartment. So it literally is one of those neighborhoods for everyone. I would say that as a real estate agent, when I'm working with people in this neighborhood, a lot of the decision comes down to the subway trains, to be honest with you. So a lot of people are always thinking do I need to rely on the subway train every day? And if I do, I want to be in an apartment that's closer to the train line. That is pretty much the make or break decision in this neighborhood. But overall, like I said, there's really something for everyone here. So I hope this helped you figure out if you should live in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan or not. Now, I would love to hear your experiences about living in this neighborhood, or if you guys have any questions about the neighborhood, please share them in the comments because as always, I love hearing from you guys.